The Abbotsford Canucks are on the verge of advancing to the third round of the AHL playoffs. Beat Coachella Valley 3-1 to take a 2-1 lead in their best-of-5 series. Let's break it down. This is Rink Wide. And we welcome you inside the Rink Wide studios in downtown Vancouver, our comfortable confines. And the Abbotsford Canucks are back in the comfortable confines of the Abbotsford Centre. They take full advantage of home ice. Good crowd on a weeknight out in the Fraser Valley. 5,322 on hand to see Abby down Coachella Valley by a score of 3-1 to take a 2-1 lead in this best-of-5 second-round American Hockey League playoff series. And a tough loss in overtime in game number 2. Otherwise, Abbotsford was that close to having a chance to come home and complete the sweep. But they still have some work to do, but they have set themselves up nicely, much as in the first round, which was a best-of-3, all played out in Abbotsford. They got the all-important first one by splitting down in Palm Desert, essentially boiled this series down to a best-of-3. And all 3 of the remaining games in this series going to be played in the Fraser Valley. Well, so far, so good with a win in this one. So Abbotsford up 2-1 now and a chance to close out Coachella Valley, Seattle's top farm team, in game 4 on Friday night. It is Rink Wide. It's brought to you in part by Bet365. And you know the drill by now. We've been doing this after each and every one of the Abbotsford Canucks playoff games along the run to the Calder Cup. Same as we did throughout the regular season with the Vancouver Canucks as well. Dave Hall from Canucks Army is going to join me momentarily, and we'll get his thoughts on this one. And we will get into all of our usual features as well. We'll have our 3-star selection. We'll also have our stat that stands out. We'll look around the AHL playoffs because if the Canucks advance, their next opponent is already set in stone. The other series in the Pacific Division is done. So we'll get to that a little bit later on. But before we do, let's just run through this game, give you a couple of my thoughts before we get Dave Hall into here as well. A dreadful start, quite frankly. I know they win 3-1 and it all looks good, but if you didn't watch the game or listen to it, or you're just coming to us for the details, it took Abbotsford 15 minutes to get its first shot on goal. And guess what? They scored on their first shot of the night. Nathan Smith with his second of the playoffs. As he was all alone at the side of the net, made the most of his opportunity, but it was like Abbotsford was stuck in quicksand for the first little while. Shots were 8-0 Coachella Valley after 13 minutes. Eventually, Abbotsford finally found its skating legs, and we see this sometimes in hockey, that even though you're getting outplayed, you get the first one, and when you know it, they get another one shortly thereafter. Kirill Kudryavtsev, the defenseman, and that's been part of this the theme of this series as well. Kudryavtsev with a shot through traffic. Archie Baines standing his ground in front of the net. Nifty screen there and takes the eyes of the goaltender away. Kudryavtsev with his first of the postseason. They got goals from defensemen the other night down in Palm Desert as well. So, hey, Abbotsford doing a nice job of spreading the scoring. And really, the story of this night wasn't so much the big names, the guys that spent a lot of time with the Vancouver Canucks throughout the regular season, although Kudryavtsev was there at the end. But this was more a case of some of the worker bees for Abbotsford digging in and getting the job done. So even though they started slowly, they left the first period with a 2-0 lead. There was no scoring in the second period. Archie Baines probably had the best chance on a power play, missed on a wide open net and a backdoor play, and you wondered if that was going to come back to haunt Abbotsford. You wondered that again when 3.5 minutes into the third period, Ryan Winterton got his second of the postseason and got Coachella Valley on the board, got them some life, cut the lead to 2-1. And I thought from that point forward, Abbotsford was terrific. Maybe the final 15 minutes might have been their best 15-minute stretch of this hockey game. Phil DiGiuseppe, PDG, all reliable into an empty net with a minute to go, sealed the deal. And that's your final score by a score of 3-1. Abbotsford Downs, Coachella Valley have barely mentioned Artur Silovs, but he was terrific. And he was part of the story here because he got the hook in game 2, and you wondered who was Manny Malholter going to come back with. Well, the answer was Artur Silovs, and Silovs gives up 1 on 26 Coachella Valley shots. So a nice bounce-back game for Artur Silovs, and a nice win for the Abbotsford Canucks, who are now in the driver's seat in this best-of-5 series with a 2-1 lead. As we mentioned, Rink Wide brought to you in part by Bet365. You want to get in on the action for Stanley Cup playoffs at Bet365. They got you from game props, player props, totals, and the money line. You can even bet on futures like series winners, conference champions, the Stanley Cup champs, and a whole lot more. Whatever your bet, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app, get in on the game. An official partner of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Must be 19 or older. The YouTube chat is alive and well. Lots of people weighing in, and we love to see that. If you've got something that you want to say about this hockey game, you got a thought, a comment, a question for us, hit us up with a super chat. Our charity partner all season long has been and continues to be the BC Mental Health Foundation, changing the face of mental health and addiction by supporting breakthroughs in care, public understanding, research, and knowledge exchange. 44 wins in the regular season, and the Abbotsford Canucks add to that total with the victory tonight out in the Fraser Valley. We're going to get to Dave Hall here in a moment. And as always, in this Abbotsford playoff run, Dave is a presentation of the Pacific Toyota dealers. And they want to tell you about the Toyota BZ4X, a 100% electric vehicle backed by the peace of mind of knowing it's a Toyota and the spark of joy you get when you pass a gas station knowing that you don't have to stop. There's the added perk of being able to access HOV lanes when driving an EV, even when you're alone in the vehicle. I tell you every show, all the cargo space, room for all of your goods, all your kids' toys and sporting equipment, stick a dog or two in the back. It's got that much cargo capacity. I'm not selling you a bill of goods here. It can handle any terrain as well. It can take you from the city to the slopes or wherever your life takes you. And when you choose the BZ4X, you can get a $5,000 incentive. And right now, you can finance a 2025 BZ4X LE all-wheel drive from 0.99% APR for 36 months. Visit shoptoyota.ca or your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. All right, let's bring Dave Hall from Canucks Army into the mix here. And there he is. Dave, the Abbotsford Canucks bounced back from the overtime setback down in Coachella Valley on the weekend with a solid win. As I said, the start was mildly concerning, but hey, it's sports. It's not how you start, it's how you finish. And they skate away with a 3-1 victory. What did you make of the second win of this series for the Abbotsford Canucks?
Yeah, it's a huge win. It kind of felt like game one of the first series, if I'm being honest. Like it was just one of those games where there wasn't too much. It wasn't that pretty, but they somehow made it work, right? And if there's one thing that Abbotsford has been good at this year, it's shutting teams down in the third period when they have leads. And so that third period, they really just threw down the brakes there and just shut them down altogether. So it got a little tight there at the end, but of course, as you mentioned, old trusty PDG with the empty net. So. Big win. Now they got a real stranglehold on that series with the 2 games remaining back in Abbotsford. So yeah, big win for them for sure.
They opened the scoring for the first time in this series, and so they are able to go wire to wire because they extend it to 2-0 and held Coachella Valley to just the 1. What was your sense? What do you make of those first 15 minutes where it took them forever to get a shot on goal?
Yeah, it was, to be honest, it was a little shocking, because it wasn't that they were playing poorly. Like, they had some chances, they had some looks somewhat. So yeah, when I looked at the 15-minute mark and there was still no shots on goal, I was a little surprised. Obviously some penalty kills mixed in there as well. But yeah, I mean, you got to love it. I've said it. We've said it a couple times now, but that line of Nate Smith, Jujhar Khaira, and Sammy Blais. Whenever this team, specifically Sammy Blais, just whenever this team needs a spark, it seems like he's really stepping up and providing that spark. So I know he gets a secondary assist on that first goal, but he's a big reason for it. And they needed a spark bad. They needed some sort of anything, and sure enough, that veteran line goes to work and gets it. So yeah, it was a little touch and go for the first 15 minutes, but they sure finished well. So.
And it's funny because I didn't feel like they were being dominated in the first 15 minutes, but they didn't have the puck an awful lot in the early going, and the odd foray into the offensive zone was truly one and done. But Dino Kambites, who was back in the lineup, he was all alone in front of the net early, and I think his shot was blocked. And then Archie Baines looked like he had a shorthanded breakaway and did everything but get a shot on goal. Good defensive play as the trailer was able to get back and sweep the puck away from him. So, there were moments where it looked like, even though they didn't have any actual shots on goal, there were setups that looked like they were going to be decent scoring chances. Exactly. The last wasn't to be. But, yeah, when the chips were down, as you said, the Smith goal came off some good pressure. Finally, it took them forever, but Akito Hirose from the left side finds Smith down low and was able to get a couple of whacks of the puck and finally put it in. And then Kirill Kudryavtsev makes it 2-0. That turns out to be the game winner. I mean, those goals late in periods are always huge momentum swings, at least in my mind. And, Abbotsford probably would have been happy to be up 1-0 going to the locker room, given the way the play had gone, but to get up 2-0 and Kudryavtsev scores. I mentioned it earlier, and we've talked about him almost every night, wanting more from Arshdeep Bains. But, Dave, that goal doesn't happen if Arshdeep Bains isn't planted in front of the net. Like, that was a terrific screen that just took the eyes of Nico Koko away, couldn't see the puck, and ultimately it found its way into the back of the net.
Yeah, he parks himself in front of the net, and you got to feel for Arshdeep Bains a little bit. Like he just can't seem to buy a goal right now. So he's not showing up on the score sheet. But I feel like he does a lot of that where he does things aside from the score sheet that contribute. And so I always feel like his gears are going, and he's working hard down low, and he's winning board battles. It's just a lot of it's just not showing up on the score sheet. So. And realistically, that's what you want, right? Like at the end of the day, he is one of the drivers of this team. And so, yeah, I think it was a nice bounce back. Unfortunately, he had a couple chances tonight that he just couldn't bury. So I think it was in the third period where he had basically a wide open net there to take the 2-goal stranglehold there. But it was nice to see him have some positive moments in the game. It's just you kind of feel for him a little bit in this series, or in this playoffs rather.
Look, after a loss, I think I was more critical after a loss like the other night, where
a little more
could be a difference maker. I'm with you. I noticed him a lot more tonight, and so I wasn't being critical of him. You're right. Like right now, he can't seem to buy certainly a goal. Doesn't have a goal in the postseason. Has 4 points, but even though he doesn't get a point on the Kudryavtsev goal, my point was that he's instrumental there. And Jonathan Lekkerimäki back in the lineup after missing the last 3. The complications of dental surgery, has gone back to the half visor. Love the patience. Like, we think of him as a shooter, right? A sniper, but makes the play to hold on to that puck, and on the backhand puts it in Kudryavtsev's wheelhouse there for the long point shot. Not a sexy play necessarily, but just the right play in the right moment, I thought, from Lekkerimäki. So it wasn't a loud night for him, obviously, with just the 1 assist, but I think for him, positive to get back in the lineup and at least find his way onto the score sheet.
Yeah, and sometimes they don't need to be pretty, right? That's typically how people get back on the score sheet. So I don't. It's funny. I thought he stood out in moments, but it was typically in the defensive side. He wasn't really. He didn't show up a lot on the offensive side. So not again. Kind of to piggyback on what you said, I don't think it was a super loud game for him, but there were signs of at least, it was probably the best game he's played realistically since he's gone down, just, with some stuff on the defensive side with that. And to be quite honest, I thought it was actually probably the best game from most of the young guys. I thought guys like Ty Young really stood out. He made a couple of huge plays, including like a strip that goes on a 2-on-1, set up a few pretty good looks. And I hope I'm not getting too ahead of myself here, but I just thought a lot of the younger guys, which we've talked about quite extensively in this playoffs, we've been hoping to see, right? So I thought it was nice.
You were getting really ahead of yourself because you just said Ty Young, who...
Oh, sorry, Ty Mueller. Ty Mueller, thank you. Yes. So many ties on this team. There's Ty Glover as well. So, Ty Mueller. I just think, we've been talking quite extensively about how we were hoping for more from the younger kids. We've seen a lot from the Jujarkeras and the Sammy Blaze and the Sassons and whatnot. So I thought it was a good game for a lot of the younger guys that we just haven't really seen in this playoffs so far. So.
Yeah, and look, we've shouted out Victor Mancini, who had his moments here. Guillaume Brisebois, just steady Eddie back there.
Yeah.
I thought Akito Hirose was really good in this game as well. Not only picks up an assist, but late in the game, as they're protecting the lead, I kept noticing that number 41 was out there doing his thing, and no Christian Wolanin, no Jet Wu. The onus is going to go onto guys like Hirose, who I thought stepped up and with the Kudryavtsev goal the other night, it was Wu scoring, it was Brisebois scoring. Like, hey, they'll take contributions from anywhere, but all of a sudden, defensemen are finding a way to chip in with goals for this hockey club, which at this time of the year, absolute gravy. So it's kind of funny the way that that's like, you don't look at the defense and think like, there's a ton of big guns back there, but hey, take those contributions where you can get them.
Hey, Guillaume Brisebois has more goals than Lek Aramaki right now, so take him when you can get him.
um, let's talk about the decision to go back to Artur Silovs. I honestly, like it's hard to get info before games and to get a read on what was happening. But in my mind, I kind of thought that maybe Nikita Tolopilo, who came in relief the other night after a tough start for Silovs, maybe was going to retain the net. But Manny Malhotra went right back to the guy that he started the playoffs with. And full credit to Artur Silovs. That's tough to get the hook the other night, but he was terrific in the deciding game against Tucson. And here, under pressure early, made some big saves. So when Coachella Valley was carrying the play in the first period, and not much you could do on the one Ryan Winterton goal after the giveaway by Arnston in the defensive zone. But otherwise, Artur Silovs slams the door, 25 saves on 26 shots, and it's his net again, and he's earned it. He was really good in this hockey game.
He was really, really good. And as you said, it's a huge bounce back. And I don't think Nikita Tolopilo made that decision easy. I know Brennan Astle had an interview with Manny Malhotra during one of the intermissions. And, they talked about how, they definitely had to have a conversation, Justin Pogge and himself, just, who they think, because they're confident in both. And unfortunately, Nikita Tolopilo, ends the game with a stinker, but he played really well in relief and, probably was the reason why that game was so close. And so, it's not the worst problem to have two goalies, but I think at this time, I think it was probably the better decision at this point. Early in the playoffs, I'm a big advocate for Nikita Tolopilo. I would have liked him to go in game 2 of the first series, but now that Silovs kind of has the rhythm going, it's nice that he got that bounce back, and they showed that confidence to go back with him. So huge night, huge win, and I expect him to kind of he's definitely going to get the game next game. So
we're 3 games into this series. In some ways, it's been very much as advertised. This is a Coachella Valley team that was as disciplined as anybody in the American Hockey League all season. Power plays have been hard to come by. There were 3 apiece in this game, and nobody scored. Abbotsford had the late power play with about 4.5 minutes to go. Linus Carlson drew a penalty. Would have liked to have seen them put the hammer down there. But the flip side is this penalty kill is perfect in the playoffs, and they are nearing the end of the second round. I mean, an absolute calling card, and it just so often comes down to hardworking goaltending. Those 2 factors have been at play here, but that's a feather in Abbotsford's cap that they have not, and I don't want to jinx them, but they haven't given up a power play goal through 2 rounds of the playoffs so far.
Yeah, and to me, it's a credit to guys like Chase Waters. I mean, in the penalty kill, that's really where the captain, guys like Chase Waters really stand out, is just those big defensive plays. He just knows where to get his stick in lanes, and there's just so many subtle plays that will go unnoticed in the clips and all the highlight packages. But Chase Waters just really stands out, and of course, defensive steady eddies like Guillaume Brisebois as well. He plays a big part in that, and yeah, it's just a very cohesive unit right now, and it's working. On the opposite side, on the power play, what, one guy that I've been looking for quite a bit that we haven't really talked about is Linus Carlson. He's, we haven't seen a lot of him, and he's a guy that typically he's their power play ace that's jamming pucks away at the net front, and we haven't seen a lot of him in this series or this playoffs altogether, really. So credit to the penalty kill. That's where I just love guys like Chase Waters, though. It just really shows up.
And I'm glad you brought him up, because there was a sequence, I think late in the first period, Coachella Valley had 2 first period power plays, and they were applying pressure. And he made a terrific read out near the blue line, just to get a stick on it to knock it out to the neutral zone so that the Firebirds had to go and regroup. Tiny little thing, but exactly. The way they were applying the pressure, it was the right read in the right moment. So I'm glad you shouted out Chase Waters. And I wonder about Coachella Valley here. This is the second 3-1 win of the series for Abbotsford. So twice they've held the Firebirds to just a single goal. Yanni Newman, who led them in goals in the regular season, played a dozen games for Seattle in the National Hockey League, doesn't have a point in this series, has just 1 point in the playoffs. And so I'm sure that's a guy that they're looking to. It better happen Friday, because if it doesn't, he may not get another chance in these playoffs. Abbotsford set themselves up nicely here. And I mean, you probably heard me say right off the top, I mean, in a lot of ways, now this feels like that opening round where you got the split on the road, you come back with 3 at home if necessary, and that's what made tonight so vital. Well, they got this one. Now they've got Coachella Valley on the ropes, and they get 2 cracks at eliminating them.
Absolutely. And I mean, they haven't lost back-to-back games quite often since January. So, like you said, the crowd's going to be bumping. It's a nice Friday night game. It's going to be there in their favor. They're going to be hungry. So,
what did you make? And we'll see if there is an explanation from Manny Malhotra. There were some injuries, obviously. Atu Ratu left the game the other night, didn't play tonight, so that's a little bit of a concern there. Jet Wu, same deal. Christian Wolanin skated with the group yesterday, so that's promising that at some point here, hopefully sooner rather than later, if they are able to advance, that the veteran will get back in there. There are a lot of bodies. I know that they believe in a lot of guys, and they certainly used a lot of players throughout the regular season. What did you make of Danil Klimovich being what we think is a healthy scratch at this stage of the playoffs? Led the team in regular season goals with 25. Hasn't been dominant by any stretch, but he did score one of the goals, in fact, the game winner in game 1 of this series. So certainly raised my eyebrows a little bit when I saw that he was the guy that was coming out of the lineup tonight.
Yeah, I mean, look, this was obviously it wasn't a must-win game, but it was kind of a must-win game. You're coming off it was one of those games. It was, let's say it's a game that you really want, obviously. And so, you got Danil Klimovich playing in the bottom 6 right now. He's got the 1 goal, but he's not looking like himself. He's not shooting a lot. He's not super engaged. He's not going hard in the forecheck like we've seen him during the things or the regular season. So, I'm if he's not going to get time in the top 6, a guy like Dino Kambites, I know he's not a very sexy player, I guess you could say, but he works hard. He's a bottom 6 chip in the puck, go get it kind of player, and he's scored some goals in the season. So to bring in a guy like that, I think I'm okay with it. Like I said, if you're not going to utilize him and if he's not going to really, put up his weight in scoring goals, like that's what he's for, I think I'm okay with getting a more veteran presence there and just, maybe give him a wake up call. Like we'll see what happens in game 4. Maybe it's just a little slap in the wrist to say, hey, we need a little more from you. You can watch the next game in the press box and you can come back and hopefully that gives you a spark. But I was okay with the decision, quite honestly.
Yeah, and look, this isn't to second-guess Manny Malhotra. He's got a much better feel for the group that he's got there and the decisions that he has to make. But you don't see that very often when your team gets into the playoffs, this deep into the playoffs, and they're scratching their leading goal scorer from the regular season. But as you have eloquently pointed out on other episodes here, Klimovich played much higher in the lineup when so many of the guys above him were in Vancouver during the regular season. Now it's a bit of a different role for him. And as we said, he hasn't been terribly prominent. So I didn't have an issue. They win the hockey game. Manny's pushing the right buttons. He made the right call and goal. That's why he's the coach. And maybe he'll be the coach higher up the food chain when all is said and done here. But a good win for Abbotsford. 5,322 was the announced attendance out of the Abbotsford Center. And as he also said, onto a Friday night, you'd think that number will go up with a chance to see the home team eliminate Coachella Valley on Friday. Dave, it has been terrific to have you here through all of these games, and I hope that we get a bunch of chances to continue to work, but you're stepping away.
I'm stepping away for 2 games, hopefully, or maybe just one. Okay. Hopefully just one.
Yeah, that's true. We'll see if Abbotsford holds up its end of the bargain. Whatever the case, it's been a lot of fun. I know that you'll be watching from afar, but technology probably not going to allow us to get together on Friday night. So we'll hold down the fort here, and we look forward to seeing Abbotsford advance. And if they do, you'll be back with us here on Rink Wide. So have yourself a great weekend, and thank you for helping out again here tonight.
Hey, I really appreciate it. And hopefully, like I said, I just missed the one game, and we'll be right back at it for Series 3. So thanks for having me, and good luck with the rest of the games.
There you go. Dave Hall from Canucks Army has covered this Abbotsford team all season long, and he will again. He's just had a pre-booked weekend away. So we'll grind through. We're not quite sure what our plans are on Friday, but we'll definitely be here. We'll see if we can wrangle up a fill-in for Dave, but those are big shoes to fill because Dave does a nice job and has joined us after each and every Abbotsford game here through the Calder Cup playoffs. All right, as we said, lots of you in the chat, lots of questions. Leafs Nation says the fact that Abbotsford is playing the 2024 Calder Cup runners-up this well is impressive. Manny has the boys playing well. Maybe Vancouver's next coach. Yeah, maybe. We'll see where the Canucks go, the big league Canucks go with their coaching search. Steel Dog says Blais was rocking, guys. Sammy Blais has had like at least one big hit in every one of these playoff games. And we didn't really mention him. Dave talked about him briefly getting the second assist on the Nate Smith goal. And that line with Kyra and Smith, they were terrific on Saturday in a losing cause, had moments here and obviously led to the opening goal. But Sammy Blais is, look, this is an interesting character. This guy played for the St. Louis Blues in their Stanley Cup win in 2019. It was musical chairs at the start of the year, and the music stopped, and he didn't have an NHL job. So he has spent the entire season in Abbotsford, leads the Calder Cup playoffs, at least at one. I haven't seen all of the updates from tonight, but at one point earlier tonight, he led the American Hockey League playoffs in scoring with his 7th point. So he's been a huge factor for the Abbotsford Canucks here in this playoff push. And I know Dave has mentioned it. I have to believe that there's another act in Sammy Blais' NHL career, whether it's with the Canuck organization or somewhere else. He's 28 years old. He's the same age as Brock Besser and Jake DeBrusk. Like, this isn't an old player. And Besser's going to free agency and expecting to hit a home run deal, and Jake DeBrusk did pretty well for himself. And that's not to suggest that Sammy Blais is going to get that kind of deal. I'm just saying that at the age he is, he could easily get back into the National Hockey League and continue at that level for a while still. But he's physical, doesn't miss an opportunity, and when he hits guys, he hits them hard. They know that they've been belted. So he's been fun to watch, and he's been a big part of what Abbotsford's got going on. Daily Faceoff, like the website? Daily Faceoff in the chat says, Jeff, if Manny's being considered for the head coaching job in Vancouver, would the Canucks wait till Abbotsford finishes their season? Yeah, I think so. And that is a bit of a wrinkle in all of this. That, will there be a gap in these playoffs where Manny could formally interview for the job? Because Jim Rutherford said, they don't want this to be a distraction, but he also said Manny was going to be on the short list. So it is going to be interesting to see how this goes. And certainly, if other NHL teams were interested in Manny Malhotra after the job he's done, he's not going to get approval to talk to them while he's coaching out in Abbotsford. So that is one of the advantages that the Vancouver Canucks have. They've got this guy on their staff and in-house. And if the longer the Canucks go without a coaching decision, the more maybe that lends itself to thinking that more roads than not are leading to Abbotsford to fill the coaching vacancy. But, we'll see where it goes. Right now, Abbotsford is Manny Malhotra's number one priority. He's doing a nice job, pushing the right buttons, made the right call on the goaltending, and his team wins this one. So they are up 2-1 now on the Coachella Valley Firebirds, with Game 4 set for Friday night out in Abbey. Game 5, if necessary, would go on Mother's Day Sunday. All right, let's get to the 3 stars. And the 3 stars were a presentation of Greta Bar YVR. The 3 stars as selected in the building, Artur Silovs, Kirill Kudratsev, and Guillaume Brisebois. So a clean sweep for the Abbotsford Canucks in their own building. No problem with any of those 3. A little different here on Rink Wide. We're going with the 2 goaltenders because essentially this is a 2-1 hockey game. PDG scores into an empty net, but the goalies did their part. Artur Silovs was terrific. And we'll get more on Silovs here in a sec when we get to our stat that stands out. But you can't ask for a whole lot more from Artur Silovs, and really not a lot he could do on the one goal that got past him. So an arty party in Abbotsford tonight, no doubt about it. Nike Koko, I just like saying that, so I may say it a few more times, but he was really good in the Seattle net. But needs some offensive help, obviously. If this, did I say Seattle net? He's been in the Seattle net, in the Coachella Valley net, but he needs some help. He can't do it alone. And there's Kirill Kudratsev, who gets the game winner, made it 2-0 late in the first period, 3 shots on goal. And I just like the job that all these defensemen have done in the absence of 2 guys that absolutely would be in this lineup if they were healthy, and Christian Wolanin and Jet Wu. So Silovs, Koko, and Kudratsev, those are your 3 stars, our 3 stars here at Rink Wide, a presentation of Greta Bar YVR. All the big screens, not a bad seat in the house. Got the arcade games if whatever's on TV is not of interest to you. You can order off the terrific new street food menu. They've got weekly drink specials as well. Greta Bar, the place to be, 50 West Cordova. Greta Bar, let the games begin. And let's just stay on that theme of Artur Silovs, who we know didn't have a great season in the National Hockey League. And the Canucks have a lot of guys in the system in goal. Like it's going to be interesting to see if they all are still Canucks through this offseason. And now we know that Rick Tocchet didn't have a ton of confidence in Artur Silovs. Tocchet's not here anymore. So maybe a fresh start with the new coach. And if that new coach is Manny Malhotra, maybe that really changes the dynamic about, the third string guy on the depth chart for the Vancouver Canucks organization. But right now, Artur Silovs is back to being the number one guy out in Abbotsford, and he was good in this hockey game, as we said, and has been really good in the last 2 home games for the Abbotsford Canucks. Let's get to our stat that stands out, and we'll bring it up on our screen. The stat that stands out is that Silovs has given up 1 goal in his last 2 home games. That's getting it done. He had the shutout of Tucson in the 5-0 win in the deciding game in the opening round. Then they started on the road, and then they come back home, and Artur Silovs puts up that wall again, and he had to make some saves. Ryan Winterton scored on him in the third period, but Winterton had a terrific chance midway through the first period, and Silovs was there to shut him down. As we said, the shots were 8-0. Coachella Valley had opened the scoring in the first 2 games of the series. If they get out to a 1-0 lead here, a bit of pressure applied to Abbotsford, maybe the night goes differently. But the goaltender did his job. And so there you go. Definitely a stat that stands out. If Artur Silovs continues to give up 1 goal every other game on home ice, then I like the chances of Abbotsford getting on a lengthy playoff run here in this postseason. The stat that stands out, brought to you by our friends at Resurrection Spirits, and we've been telling you about Bogey Juice for a while now. Crafted with a tantalizing blend of crisp apple flavoring and kickin' ginger for that refreshing zing. Every shot of Bogey Juice, like a hole-in-one for your taste buds, sweetened to perfection with simple syrup and made even smoother with top shelf vodka. It's the only juice that's guaranteed to make your golf buddies beam with envy, despite the score it refers to. Check out bogeyjuice.com for more info. You can use promo code SP15 for 15% off Bogey Juice product and merchandise. 3 different goal scorers. Abbotsford continuing to spread the scoring around, and that's been a huge part of what they're all about. And again, with so many guys shuttling back and forth between the minors and the big leagues throughout the regular season, they needed contributions from a lot of guys. So that hasn't changed here in the playoffs, and it is serving the Abbotsford Canucks well. Tonight it was Nate Smith with his second, Krudy Ratsev his first, and PDG ended on empty net. That's his 3rd goal of these playoffs. And so Phil DiGiuseppe, just a true veteran. People know that. He's been in the organization long enough. Low-maintenance guy, shows up, competes, plays hard, and at that level has found some offensive flair that's allowed him to have 5 points now through 6 playoff games. So, you don't think of PDG necessarily as an offensive driver, but he's stepping in and chipping in, and I think only Sammy Blais has more points in these playoffs right now than PDG among Abbotsford scorers. So, we talked a little bit about with Dave. I choose to see this as a good sign that, this was a win on the backs of some of the worker bees, that this wasn't a night for the biggest names in that Abbotsford lineup to come through and carry the day offensively. But Friday night's another chance. And the longer they go in these playoffs, it's going to happen for Archie Baines. Again, the missed opportunity in the second period on the power play, that one might keep him up at night, but his team got the win. Ultimately, that's what matters the most. But yeah, Archie Baines has 4 points now through 6 games. He led this team in offensive production during the regular season. They're counting on him. They need a little bit more. And so you hope that it comes sooner rather than later. And again, wish we had some sense of the injuries and the status of some of these guys as these playoffs move forward. I'm just looking. Manny Malhotra was asked after the game about guys like Wolanin, Ratu, and Jet Wu, and all he said with a little bit of a smirk was, "It's playoff time. their day-to-day. So Manny not giving up the goods on some of his injured players, and we'll see if they're available. I think Abbotsford's taking Thursday off entirely, and they'll get back at it with a morning skate on Friday and then play 7 o'clock Friday night. That is the next game in this series, and I don't think there's much doubt now about goaltending. It'll be Artur Silovs getting the start there. We'll see if there are lineup moves, and we'll see if Coachella Valley, down to their final out now. What do they do? Do they have any tricks up their sleeve? They've had some injuries as well. They're not at full strength. And I think that's part of the story here, but, it cuts both ways. Abbotsford's having to deal with some injuries, finding a way to get it done. So credit to Manny Malhotra and his crew for the win tonight and this 2-1 lead in this best-of-5 series. Now, we mentioned a little bit earlier that should Abbotsford advance, their next opponent is sitting and waiting because Colorado won the Pacific Division, got a first-round bye, and now took care of San Jose in 4 games. So Colorado didn't play the first round. They mowed through San Jose in 4, and now they will sit and wait for an opponent in the next round, which, by the way, is another one of these best-of-5s where the higher seed, which will be Colorado because they were the division winner, Colorado will get to choose where that series starts. We're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves here, but I just want to lay it out that if Abbotsford prevails, then it would be the top 2 teams in the Pacific Division battling for the division in a best-of-5, which would likely start out in the Fraser Valley and then finish up down in Colorado. So Abbotsford can't worry about Colorado at this point. They still are firmly fixed on one more win against this Coachella Valley team, and then they'll get ready for a showdown against the top team in the Pacific Division. As the Abbotsford Canucks continue to play, so do the Vancouver Canadians. Now, the Seas are out on the road this week, but they're back at home at the Nat starting next Tuesday, May the 13th, for a 6-game set with the Everett Aquasox. Homestand includes a nooner at the Nat on Friday the 16th. On Saturday the 17th, the Seas are hosting Women in Sport Day with a special guest appearance by Sportsnet's Hazel May. And then check out the White Spot Family Fun Sunday on the 18th. You bring the kids, they can run the bases post-game. Always a fun day on a Sunday afternoon. For the full schedule and tickets, check out CanadiansBaseball.com. All right, we do this after each and every Abbotsford game in the playoffs, and they will play on. They'll certainly play Friday, and if necessary, they will play on Sunday as well. But they don't want any part of Sunday. We really don't want any part of Sunday. It's Mother's Day for families, and hockey might be a bit of a distraction, but hey, if they have to play Sunday, they'll play, and if they play Sunday, we'll be at work here at Rink Wide as well. So, all right, a good night for Abbotsford. And again, didn't start so well, but I really like the way they defended. I was going to say protected, but really didn't protect. They outshot Coachella Valley in the third period. Final shots were 26-23 on the night, but 9-6 in the third period for Abbotsford. That included the only power play. I like the way Abbotsford finished this game, and we'll see if they can carry that over into the next game, get a little bit of a better start. Just in terms of territorially, they had a 2-0 lead, so nothing to argue with there. But that Coachella Valley is going to come out hard, playing for their playoff lives. They want to extend this series, and Abbotsford wants to take care of business, get things done on Friday night at home. So, all right, for Dave Hall from Canucks Army, we got Jacob Lazar, our technical producer, as well. Thanks to everybody that helps out behind the scenes here on Rink Wide. Before we run, just want to mention, make sure you're checking out Canucks Army. Dave normally has the Farmies. Cody Sievertson is on Farmies duty. So you heard from Dave, but you can go read Cody's thoughts and his breakdown of this game that we've just talked about. So a different perspective there. And make sure that you're bookmarking Canucks Army for all of the news on this Abbotsford team, but also the big league team as well. And then make sure you're listening to Sakaris and Price and Canucks Convo and everything under this Nation Network tent of ours. But that is going to do it for us. The final score, one more time, was the Abbotsford Canucks 3, the Coachella Valley Firebirds 1. Abbotsford with a 2-1 lead in this best-of-5 series could wrap up on Friday. That's when we're back with our next episode of Rink Wide.